No, you can introduce
You can do it.
No, you
can do it.
No,
you can do it.
No, you
like,
do it.
You can introduce the video.
Yeah.
No, you can do this.
No, you can do this.
What do you mean? It's your channel.
Welcome to my channel.
Welcome to Hillman's channel, and today.
You started already?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. No, start again. Okay. I'm back.
With another video!
In my channel. No. So basically this is one of the first ever videos on the channel, and as I mentioned before already, we're going to be having people over in the channel to have a lot of discussions that matter, discussions that don't matter, and all discussions we're going to be having. So the topic of today is going to be about multiculturalism and how that has an influence on your personality, some of the pros and cons, and probably eventually maybe some tips from our own experiences. So without further ado, we're going to dive into the topic, and I'm going to let the person seated right next to me, left to me, right to me, left to me, introduce herself.
Alright, you don't want to introduce me?
No, I don't want to introduce you.
I joke! I kid. What is that actually from? Okay, no, distraction.
Ass like this.
I know it. So, I'm Freddie, aka Schnitzel. No, I'm kidding. I'm not gonna. No. So yeah, I'm Freddie, and I also study at Massive University. And I'm Hillman's friend. We play ball together.
Do we?
Well, you don't fucking play anymore. You've been injured for like 5 years. But yeah, and he thought that I'd be a good candidate, so to say, for this discussion. So discussion.
It's a discussion,
Topic.
Yeah.
Because I moved around a lot, and I also am one of those people who considers herself a third culture kid.
No, I don't think that qualifies as third culture.
No, it's like 11 culture kid, but it's fine.
Exactly. Yeah.
Extravaganza.
She didn't do it justice. Let me just give the intro myself. So she's Freddie Einbauer, right?
No!
And when you talk about multiculturalism, she's the epitome of multiculturalism. She lived in 11 countries, people. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
I'm glad you can count.
I know. She lived in 11 countries. So, yeah, you cannot talk about multiculturalism without talking about Freddie. So that is why I invited her over to the channel today to have this discussion with me. And I really appreciate you for being here. Thank you.
Thank you for
You're
having
very
me.
kind. So let's proceed, right? So what are we going to start with? Let's just start with what is multiculturalism? And why exactly is it like very unique to Maastricht University? Just like a brief intro. As she already mentioned, we study in Maastricht University together, and Maastricht University is like a city located somewhere in the Netherlands, like really south, like
the
close
south
to the
side.
south, exactly south side. The people in the north ain't got nothing on us. But so it's close to the border of Belgium and Germany, and that kind of creates a very international atmosphere. You have a lot of people coming from different parts of the world who have different cultures and different nationalities, and so coping in Maastricht University and getting along with people in a good way takes a lot of multicultural awareness, and without this awareness you might find yourself in very, very unfortunate circumstances, if I put it that way. So it's very necessary to be aware that there are different cultures around you and know how to cope with the different cultures. So basically what we're going to be talking about in this video is the pros and cons of having a multicultural background, and probably some tips. And then yeah, let's get right into it. So let's start with pros. What are some pros on your cons? So she's going to give a pro and I'm going to give a pro on my side, and then we can see if there's some multiculturalism in the pros and cons already.
Yeah.
So first pro.
I would say the biggest pro for me is adaptability, because growing up, due to the fact that I moved so often, it was more that something, like the essence of fear was never something that kept me back. So a lot of people that are like moving around maybe only once, they're so scared that they can't make friends or that they can't blend into the crowd, so to say. And for me, that was never a problem, because I feel like once you move so often, you learn also social skills and a set of skills in order to like make friends or kind of, you know, make your way through the crowd, so to say.
Yeah. I have the same pro, but with a different term. Flexibility.
You said, right? Yeah.
I have a flexibility part. So I think, just the moving around part, for example, for me, I've lived in Cameroon and the Netherlands. No, that's a lie. I've lived in Cameroon, and after Cameroon, I moved to the Netherlands, but I moved to the northern part of the Netherlands, which is Rotterdam, in the neighborhood of Rotterdam. And then I moved down to the south. And you might think it's the same country, but no. The north and the south, not even north, the middle and the south are like two different cultures. So I consider myself having moved from two different cultures, moving from the middle to the south. And then I also lived with my sister in Ireland for a while, so then I also got a taste of the culture in Ireland. And the flexibility in like moving around is, for example, I can switch accents a lot. Like, I don't even know how to do it, especially with the Cameroonian accent. I just cannot like induce it. I just need to talk to someone from Cameroon and the accent just comes out. So it's like you have a flexibility of accent because you learn different languages as well. You indeed know how to make friends better, or at least you can socialize better. I think like it's very easy for me to just socialize with people because I've been there and I've seen it. So I feel like there's not that much of a barrier anymore because what's the worst that can happen? I'm gonna move anyways, and another culture is gonna come up, and there's nothing really bad that can happen. So I think that flexibility aspect is something that really is a benefit of being such a multicultural citizen.
But so question for you, do you feel like a lot of it has to do with the fact that you've moved, or more like your Cameroon upbringing? Because like African people in general, I feel like have a vibe that is already quite like extroverted, right?
Vibe. That is
no, but do you know what I mean? Like the
I
atmosphere that surrounds you, because obviously like I was born in Dubai, and I mean I have nothing of an Arabic kind of sense that I like radiate or something, or at least in my
get like a cloth.
No, but you know what I mean. Like
I
would say I really am the way that I am a lot because of my parents, and also because of the way that I've moved around really often. But I can assume, especially for you, if you've lived in Cameroon for so long of your life, that's already a very dominant part of your character.
That is definitely for sure, and I think it kind of brings me to the second part of my second pro, which is the whole idea of open-mindedness. So we have a very extroverted in Cameroon, to say shortly, and that kind of helps us with the whole socializing and social adaptability and all whatnot. But I feel like the barrier comes when you're not open-minded, because I feel like before I came to the Netherlands, there are a lot of things which I would see and would not condone. Like kids don't just go around shouting at their parents in the streets. Like that don't happen. You just get a whooping. So like coming here, I needed to like have an open mindset to be able to say, okay, that is something which is normal here. It's not normal for us.
Yeah, the
so
cultural
I need
norms
to,
for
yeah,
sure.
exactly. I need to be able to look past these things because I might not be used to it, but then I'm in a different culture now. I'm in a different society, so I need to be able to adapt to their own norms and their own values and stuff like that without necessarily losing my own values. So I feel like the combination of the extrovertedness from Cameroon and like the open-mindedness I got from moving around in different places kind of plays a role to why it's really easy for me to just like establish contacts and make establish contact to establish contact. You know what I'm saying? to make contact with people and like befriend people the way I can. I feel like it's a combination of both that kind of bears that fruit. Yeah. What is second pro for you?
I'm not sure. I would say it's one of those points that has a pro and a con within it, and it's more of like a factual thing rather than like a one-worded, this is the way to go, more or less. So for me, I've noticed that I grew up being super like blind to race. It sounds really silly, but like I grew up with people that were Chinese, people that were Arabic, people that were African, and it was super casual for me to see them as people rather than their skin color or rather than where they were from, because of the fact that I was exposed to so many types that I didn't see that there was a difference. Like for me, it was just humans, you know what I mean? Like the way that if you grow up in Europe and you have a couple, let's say, Caucasian friends that have different noses and then you like differentiate between, but they seem the same. No, but you know what I mean? And then like a Chinese comes into the mix and you think like, no, but really. And
why did you have to touch the nose?
No, but just like, for example, some people have flatter nose, some people, it's like one of those things that differentiate a lot between people.
Yeah, like you have a small nose, have a big nose, yeah.
Yeah. No, but you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it was a really big point that most people just were humans to me. So for example, like, so a couple months ago, I was talking to Luke, one of my friends from Jamaica, and I was telling him like, oh yeah, I'm gonna meet up with Hillman, blah blah blah. It was just like a discussion topic, like just how you would talk about it with anyone. And then it's like, you know, when you refer to people but you never show pictures or anything. So like I was like, yeah, I'm gonna meet up with Hillman, or like, oh yeah, I'm gonna see Hillman or whatever. And then once he either saw you like when we were together or something, or I like was actually showing pictures, and he was like, what? And I was like, what? He's like, he's black. I was like, yeah. He's like, you never mentioned that, because it didn't seem like a factor for me to like mention. And he was like, Freddie, you're the least like like I literally was just like talking about you as you are. I never mentioned what you look like.
Like that, okay.
So like because it doesn't seem like an element, not that it's not something that's important, but if I was talking about you and saying like, oh, he's from Cameroon, then okay, he might be like, okay, is he black? Like that's something different, you know? But I just talked about you as a person, and many people would be like, yeah, like he's black, well, if you're like describing a friend of yours or something.
I feel like I'm the opposite. I'm gonna make sure you know the context before I give you the details. So I'm the kind of person who's gonna be like, yeah, Freddie, I feel like my friends are gonna ask first, is she Caucasian or...
But really though? See, but this is funny, because this is exactly what I'm saying. Your group of friends, the ones that would ask, would be from where? Like the ones...
Take a guess.
Yeah, but I would have assumed like people who are black would ask you if I would be black or white.
I feel like it's probably...
Doesn't matter if you're black or...
I feel like though, because for example, I am not that blind to race. Because I mean, I grew up in an African country for my whole life and moved to Europe and stuff like that. You get sensitive to some issues and some stereotypes and some norms which your race of people have been like placed in, more or less.
Yeah, so, see, but this is why I'm saying it makes sense for you to come from a different direction, because you tend to be within the group of people that is considered to be yeah, exactly. So you're coming from the worst place, so to say, like just strictly speaking. Versus I'm the one who's the white privileged person, you know what I mean? So if I'm amongst my white friends, because most of them, let's say, because of how I grew up within the European standards, weren't black, and I'm telling them I met a guy, his name is Hillman, we play basketball together, blah, 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 blah. The discussion goes on, a couple months later they meet you and all of a sudden they're like, yo, he's black. You know what I mean? Because I never thought to mention that, whereas usually amongst white people you would mention, oh, he's black. Whereas if I was within like your culture, let's say, and you're hanging out with like a lot of friends that are black, and I'm coming into the circle, you might mention, oh, she's white. But if I was black, you wouldn't mention, oh, she's black.
Yeah, I feel like that also has to do with the context in which we're in. Like, Maastricht University is a very white place, so you'd have a lot of black. I mean, to be fair, if I was in Cameroon and I missed the detail that you were white as well, that would, because in Cameroon you don't need to specify because everyone is black. You know what I mean? Or, yeah, most people, Chinese are invading now, but that's not important. But most people are like black. So then if you're talking about something, you don't need to specify the race. But here in Maastricht, I feel like you need that. Because
part of me is blind to race, but the other part of it is also attentive to the differences and loves the people for those reasons as well, you know? Because it's not like I'm diminishing who you are and where you come from, because I think it's also super important to actually that.
Yeah, you see past it.
Yeah, like I see past it. So like I would never discriminate you for the differences amongst like other people, but I might take your differences on a silver platter for like positive aspects, or just for like rich, knowledgeable culture type of things, you know? But not as a way to place you on a different standpoint than any of my other friends who would be of different culture or whatever. So that's the way that I say it. Like blind to race, as in I would treat you the same way as I would treat a Caucasian person, an Asian person, Arabic, whatever it may be, you know? Yet I would still appreciate you for the fact where you grew up. Like I don't completely diminish your historical background. I still am knowledgeable of the fact that you may have a different background or whatever, you know?
Yeah. But I feel like this discussion of race is one which can go on for like a long time. So
Yeah.
we probably could make another video for this. Alright, so the third pro for me is gonna be perspectives. So like you get different perspectives and you're more diversified. That also has to do with more or less with the fact that you speak different languages as well. Do you speak different languages? Yeah, you speak different languages. So you speak German, English, German, English, Dutch. You try Czech.
Well, if we're talking
Arabic,
about
you try Arabic.
I spoke Arabic when I was
Oh,
a
you
kid.
speak Spanish?
I speak Spanish.
Exactly, that's it. You speak 4, right? Or
Yeah,
5?
I speak 4.
Exactly.
I used to speak 6.
Okay. Alright, I speak 2. Oh wait, I speak 3.
You
I
speak 2? You speak 3.
I speak 3, yeah. Do I speak 3? I don't even know how many I speak anymore, but I speak different languages. So that can also help with diversity because, you know, I mean, studies have shown that if you speak different languages, that also affects your thought processing.
Mm-hmm.
And if you speak a language, you definitely have to think in that language. And if you're thinking in the language, therefore you're thinking like the people who speak that language or who originally have that language. And that also affects your perspective because, for example, the Dutch people are very direct. So when I speak Dutch, I have the tendency, I try to fight the tendency, but I have the tendency to be very direct, which I do not like, but it's just with the language. When I speak English, I tend to be very long and very cumbersome. I cannot cut things short. So it's like a complete opposite, like you have opposite poles just because you speak different languages. And that also helps you with different perspectives. And for me, one of the greatest advantages of that is the fact that you have a higher problem solving ability.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, because you have the tendency to like just see things from different perspectives naturally because of your language orientation, that helps you problem solving because you can easily just look at a problem and be like, okay, I'm approaching it from an English perspective, from a Dutch perspective, from a Czech perspective, from a Dubaian perspective. That is not a word, but
Arabic
from
perspective?
from an Arabic perspective, from an Arabic perspective, they speak Arabic in Dubai, innit?
Yeah.
From an Arabic perspective, or many other perspectives. So that just gives you like an upper hand compared to someone who just speaks one language and has one perspective. So for me, that's a big pro.
I completely agree with you, but in the same sense, I also think that certain languages can be restricting or limiting because they guide you to say certain things without your
Consent.
Yeah, more or less. No, like how you
For example?
like how you say with Dutch, for example, that Dutch is quite a direct language, so to say. You can, of course, change the way that you put words across, but nonetheless, because of the language, you'll more or less potentially accentuate a more straightforward attitude when
That
you
is true.
speak. But the same way, for example, that certain languages only have certain words. Like, I feel like my character changes when I speak different languages. So, like, when I'm speaking German versus when I'm speaking English, my personality doesn't shine through the same way because I spoke up.
Okay.
I grew up speaking English as my like primary language, right? So my mom is German, my dad is Dutch. My father never spoke Dutch to us ever. So I just learned it like through my grandparents speaking to my dad and me, like picking it up third person kind of. And my mom spoke German to me, and then growing up it was like this mix between I'd come home from school and I'd just speak English because that's the way that I experienced the day, and I was just too lazy to translate everything to German. And then my mom would be giving speak German. But certain languages, I feel like just, even in word choice, like with like gender terms, like for example, certain professions or certain things that have to do with power are like masculine words. So you grow up speaking a language that also outlines the culture of the place that you live in.
Yeah.
So really often, like if you're speaking English, I feel like that's quite like a flexible language, more or less here there. But like German, for example, where things, or like Spanish or French, whatever, where things are masculine and feminine.
Even Dutch,
Yeah, it changes the way that you think and the framework for everything without you even consciously being aware of it.
I've actually never thought about the masculine, like, more
Like,
powerful than
yeah.
the feminine.
So for example, I don't remember the language, but like in one of the languages, every single like power word is masculine, and it doesn't exist in in a feminine version or anything. And that's also a culture where women are kind of like put under the belt.
Under the belt.
Yes.
Okay. Interesting.
No, but it's interesting, right? Like,
Yeah, so that could be like basically potentially a pro and a con.
yeah, that's why I'm saying like most of these points I feel like are or can be pro and con. It's just more like factors of discussion, you
Yeah,
know?
true. But like basically just talking from my experience, it's more of a pro than a con. Maybe from your experience, a con.
No, it is a pro for sure, but I just think it's interesting like when you go into the root of it.
Of it, yeah.
Not just like the applicability, because obviously that's much of a pro because that's how you like use it and utilize it to do different things. But when you look at it for like, you know, the points that we're going to get to in terms of like fitting in and blah blah blah, then it has like a completely different shift. And then it really depends on your character and how you pull through.
Yeah.
Because you could be given the privilege of having our type of lifestyle of moving around a lot, let's say, but completely like catapult into the opposite direction because your character doesn't have the strength to like pull through with that, and it ends up like
backfire.
Yeah. No, but you know, if you think about it.
Yeah, no, true. And I feel like a lot of people that probably have that, like, just cannot cope with the multicultural lifestyle, and it just takes a turn on them, and then it, blows off, explodes. But yeah, the next pro, I don't know if you already give a pro, I'm just going to give the next pro. The next pro for me is just the idea of uniqueness, right? So when you move around a lot, you basically, for example, she's moved around 11 countries, she's lived in 11 countries for specific amounts of time, and I moved around like 2, 3, 4 countries for specific amounts of times as well. That makes me unique because, of course, I'm the only one who has lived in these countries for these specific amounts of time, and she's the only one who's lived in 11 countries for these specific amounts of time. So basically that just creates a whole idea of uniqueness. Like, no one is as unique as you are, and no one has picked up the different things you have picked up in different parts of the world as good as you have or as bad as you have. It could be both ways. So that kind of just makes you unique, and basically no one can do what you do. That's just a long and short of it. And I like the idea that you can like move in different places and kind of, this could be a pro and a con, but for me the pro part is you can just like pick aspects of a culture which you like. For example, I was talking with a friend of mine, and basically he's Nigerian by birth, and basically I think he lived a part of his life in Nigeria as well, and then he moved to Cameroon, went to the same boarding school, and then from there he moved to the States. And he was telling me in Nigeria the main thing he learned or picked up from the Nigerian culture is money, how to make money, how to hustle. That is the thing he picked from the Nigerian culture, how to hustle. So you have to do what you have to do to get the money. The paper must flow in. In Cameroon, the Cameroonian culture, what he picked from the culture is the hustling, like the studious environment. So like basically because the secondary school setup in Cameroon is so tedious, is so strong, like it forms you for any part of the world which you have to go in because your academic footing is very strong. So he picked up the academic like stability from Cameroon, and
now he's a billionaire.
Give it some time, a few more years, and now he's back in the States. Now he moved to the States, and what he picked up from there is just the family spirit. He says everyone in America, or like his teammates in America, basically just shower him with love. He's basically got like 1,000 parents because all his teammates' parents are his parents and stuff like that. So it's like you get to experience unique aspects of different cultures, and if you combine this, you can form a superhuman, and I find that very intriguing.
And I think a super important part with that, again, is that you need to then have the personality to want to soak up everything. Because really often you have the privilege of moving around and going to different places and doing different things, but you kind of let it like float past you, you know?
Yeah.
And if you don't soak up those aspects of it, it's almost like you weren't there in the first place, you know? So I think you can take the absolute best out of it, but you could also potentially be someone who's moved around so often.
Yeah, exactly.
But just seen buildings and said buildings and not really like immersed yourself into the culture.
Yeah. No, that's true, because sometimes, that's what the phrase kind of came up from. That's what the phrase kind of came up from, right? You don't know what you have until you lose it, basically.
Yeah.
So you can just be touring the world.
But actually, sorry to interrupt, for all the places that I have lived in, I have learned more about the place after leaving. Like, I lived in Prague for 8.5 years.
Oh yeah, that is true.
And I didn't really go into the tram culture and like go to all the touristic places until I went back. Like, because when I visited, all of a sudden I didn't have my mama to drive me around everywhere, and I had to like take the public transport by myself, and usually like I took public like 2 or 3 times with like a group of friends, let's say, and I never paid attention where I was going. I just followed the crowd. And then all of a sudden when you're on your own again and you re-emerge into what an environment was which you felt comfortable with and which you felt you knew, you look at it completely differently because you no longer live there, and you think, oh, you go to the same places that you thought weren't even important to the rest of the world, but to you they're significant.
Yeah, have another point of view, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, I have basically the same. I feel like most people have that.
Yeah.
You like live in a country your whole life.
Yeah.
And then you go out and people start telling you about good things happening in your country.
Or like when people ask you for suggestions and then you're like, you could go to the playground I used to play at every single day in elementary school. You know, the places that I would go to the most are the places that I consider important, that don't have any significant value to anybody that hasn't witnessed the same memories that I have. It doesn't have that sentimental attachment to it. This has nothing really to do with multiculturalism, except for it kind of does, because I guess everyone has childhood and everyone has that playground, and like I have those playgrounds like in every 11 country. That doesn't make sense.
Okay, so that was it for the pros from both parts. And now we're
in
gonna...
case you're wondering why the angle is different. And some technical difficulties.
Technical malfunction.
Oh.
But we got that sorted out. Now to the cons.